Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This is Varun. In the previous video, we have seen how do we work with Pandas series and data frames. Also, we have seen a case where we import data from a CSV and perform some basic summarization operations like getting information of it, seeing the structure, etc. Okay, so we have also elaborated how to use date range functions and how to retrieve data out of the data frame and sort it using some columns. Now in this session, we will be seeing how to index and select data and get rows, columns and the subset of data frame using various techniques. So let's start. So before starting, I would want you guys to go through my previous video if you haven't gone through it, as the concept and syntax used in this session are follow-ups from that session. Okay, now moving on to selection of rows. So selecting rows in data frames is similar to indexing we have seen in NumPy arrays. So the syntax is somewhat like this, where we give the data frame and inside the square brackets the start index, colon and index. Okay, this will subset rows according to the start and end indices. Now we'll see an example here. So let me import libraries. I'll say import pandas as pd and import numpy as np. Okay, and then I will take the same market data frame which we have used in previous lecture and load it using read.csv. Okay, so I'll say global sales data, which is the name of our folder, and under that market underscore fact is our data frame. Okay, and when I do market df dot head, it will give us the few rows of the data frame. Okay, so notice guys that here by default pandas assigns integer labels to the rows starting 0. Okay, now we will start selecting the rows according to indices. So here I will select the market df and choose rows starting from second index to sixth index. So it will return us 5 rows starting from second index till the sixth index. Okay, so now we will see how to select alternate rows starting from an index. So I will use the same df here and I will start from 5th row and take alternatively the rows. So remember guys, this is the step function which we have already discussed in previous session. So it will start alternating the rows here. So you can observe here, so it is starting from the 5th row and it is taking every alternative rows from here like 7, 9, 11 and 13. Now we'll see how to select columns. So there are two simple ways to select a single column from a data frame. The first one is using data frame and square brackets under that given the column name. Okay, or we can use simply data frame dot column name. Okay, so let's check how it works. So I will use sales column here. So I will say sales equals to market df and use sales here, and let's say sales dot head. So this will become a kind of series here guys. Okay, so when I do sales and we'll check the type of it, okay, then you guys will notice it will come as a series. Okay, let's print this also. Okay, so you can see here it is of pandas course series type. Okay, so we can do the similar thing with a different syntax just using dot sales here. Okay, So when we do like this and do a head, you will see it will give identical values. Now guys, let's see how do we select multiple columns in a data frame. So let me use the same data frame, okay, and I'll say head here. Okay, so we have these columns, and let's say that I want to select customer ID, sales and profit column from it. So how to do this? So I'll say market df and I will use a list inside this, okay, and specify the column names. So customer ID, comma, sales, and then profit, okay, and then I will say dot head just to see what it outputs, okay. Now when I execute it and check, it will be selecting only those columns which we have given, okay. So you guys will notice here, if I check its type, you'll find out that this itself is a data frame, okay. Now I have a question for you guys. So let's say that I have to select only one column from it, but instead of giving in a single column, okay, I am giving a list here and specifying that. Let's say that I specify sales as we did before. So what do you think will be returned as a type? Is it a series or a data frame? So guys, until now we have seen how do we select rows and columns using following ways. Okay, to select the rows we have chosen the start and stop, and to select the column we have chosen this way of indexing, okay, by specifying the column inside that and even with dot operator and specifying the columns in a list, okay. But Pandas does not prefer this way of indexing data frames because it has some ambiguity over it, okay. So let me give you an example of it. Let's say that I have the same market df, okay, and I want to select the third row. So if I give it here 2, Panda will throw an error saying key error, okay. This is because it is confused whether this 2 is an index or a label. We can also recall from previous section that we can change the row indices, okay. So let's try and do that also. So I'll say set underscore index, okay, and specify a column name order ID here, okay. Let's choose this and say head, okay. So here it has changed this order ID as an index here. Now imagine that we had a column with entries 2, 4, 7, 8, okay, and you set that as an index, okay. So in that case guys, I will ask you what should that df2 will return, okay. Let's say that df is that data frame and we had a column with those entries 2, 4, 7, 8, and what we do is we do df2, okay. So will it return the second row or the value with the index value of 2? So guys, in short, in these scenarios Pandas will throw an error. Because of this and similar other ambiguities, Pandas provide explicit ways to subset data frames, okay. So position based indexing and label based indexing is what Pandas provide, which we will study next. Okay, so as I said that there are two ways of indexing in Pandas, that is position based indexing and label based indexing. So position based indexing refers to df.iloc function and label based indexing refers to df.loc function. Okay, so let's check them out one by one. So what we'll do is, just to check the syntax of it, I will do pd dot dataframe dot iloc, okay. So it will give us the syntax and what all it accepts. Okay, so this accepts an integer here, or a list of array of integers, or even some slices separated by colons, as we have seen earlier, a boolean array or a callable function. So let's look at the examples one by one. So let's say that I want to select a single element's value from that data frame. Okay, so let me print this data frame first here for you guys. Okay, this looks something like this. Now let's say that I wanted to print third row and fifth column. Okay, so third row is this and fifth column is this. Okay, so I want this value to come. So what I will do is I will use this market df, and if I say 2,4, it should ideally give me error like we have seen in the previous session. Okay, so it is giving me 2,4 error here, because we will not be able to fetch this, as there will be an ambiguity and pandas will not be able to identify whether that index is a kind of row label or an integer index for third row. Okay, so what we'll do in this kind of situation is we'll use iloc function. So we'll use iloc and we will specify in square brackets 2,4. Okay, so you guys can see here 4701.69 is retrieved. Okay, which is this value. Now let's say that I want single row and all the columns. So what I'll do in that case is I will specify iloc with a single value. Let's say that we want to fetch sixth row. Okay, so for that 5 I will give, and let's tally with this head function. So what I'll do is I will fetch first 6 rows. So let's see the last row, which is the sixth row, which has order 5446. Okay, so these values will tally with the sixth row here. We can even do this with different syntax. Okay, so I will say dot iloc and mention here 5 comma colon. Okay, so it will also fetch the same row, and in which this will represent the row and this will represent the column. So colon will represent all the rows and columns. Okay, so here it will represent all the columns. Now we can do this via another method, which is only specifying 5 and comma. So it will automatically by default assume that you want all the columns. So this is also equivalent to what we have done previously. Now let's say that I want different rows. Okay, so what I'll do is use the market df dot iloc function and specify which all rows I want. So let's say I want 4th, 8th and 9th. So I will say 3, 7 and 8. Okay, so it has fetched the 4th row, the 8th row and the 9th row. Now we can do the same thing using different syntax also, as you have seen previously. So if I give it like this and specify comma and colon, it will give me the same output. Okay, so this will specify all the columns. So here we are just specifying the rows and not the columns. So implicitly the pandas data frame knows it that we want all the columns. Now let's say that I want to specify the rows using range. Okay, so I will use the iloc with ranges starting from 4th to 8th index. So this will give me the 4th to 8th index rows. Okay, we can specify it like the other way also, like we have seen previously, by giving this and then comma colon. So this will also give us the same output. Now we will select a single column and all the rows of it. Okay, so to do that, I'll use this market df and say dot iloc and square brackets give all the rows. So guys, all the rows means we will use colon here, and then second parameter is column. So let's say that I want third column, so I will use 2 here. So it will fetch us the third column. So I will print it, the market df, and you can tally. Okay, so it will be like this, third column will be fetched, which is ship ID. Now let's say that I want all the rows, but particularly some columns specifying the ranges of it. Okay, so let's say that I want data from customer ID, sales, discount, order quantity, and profit. Okay, so let's check how to do that. So I'll say iloc, and then as I have all the columns, then I will specify colon here, and I will check the index of this customer ID. So it is 0, 1, 2, 3. So I will specify here 3, and profit is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this is 8. Okay, so I want till 7, so I will specify here 8 because this is exclusion part. Okay, so you guys can see here it has fetched the ranges of those columns and it has printed out the data for it, okay, in a data frame. We can also select multiple rows and multiple columns specifying in iloc. Okay, so let me print this out again. Okay, and let's select some of the rows and some of the columns from it. So I will again say iloc and specify some of the rows here. Say, let's say that from 1 to 3, and columns as 2 colon 5. Okay, so it has selected the first index of the row, that is the second row, and till the third index, which is the fourth row. Okay, and it has selected 2 to 5 columns, which are ship ID, customer ID, and sales ID with indexes 2, 3, and 4, and it has given all the data for it. So if I want only some columns to be presented and not the others with all the rows, using boolean values also we can do this thing. So I will use iloc function for the same. Okay, and start specifying the value as true for the columns I want and false for the columns I do not want. So let's say that I want to exclude the last 2 columns in this data frame, which is shipping cost and product based margin. Okay, so for rest of the columns I will specify true, so it will be in a list. Okay, and I will paste this just to repeat it. So this will come up to 10 columns. So right now I have 9 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so this I will keep as true and the rest 2 as false. Okay, and then I will have all the rows because this is column, that's why it is giving some error saying that boolean index has wrong length 10 instead of 8399. So guys, because earlier I have given this as a first parameter, so it was considering this as the row validation, okay, instead of column. So now I have given colon because we want all the rows but some of the columns. So now it will come, and you guys can see here that it has excluded last 2 columns. Now let's say that we have the index as strings, or even if we have them as integers, we want to use label names to select the rows and columns and not the row index and column index like we did before. Okay, so for that we will use label based indexing. Okay, So let's check the syntax of it. So I will do pd dot dataframe dot lock. Okay, put it in help and it will give you the syntax of it. Okay, so this will give you the syntax where it says that it accepts the label. Okay, even if it is an integer, it will regard that as a label. Okay, so let's check some of its examples. So just like before, we will take the market df, okay, and do head here, and then try and select some columns and rows from it. So from lock, I will specify 2 as a label and sales as the column I wanted. Okay, so from second label, it will fetch the sales column, which is this 4701.69. Now when we want to select a single row, what we'll do is we will specify only that label. Okay, let's say 4. So you will see here that it has printed this row. Now let's move on. Now we can even give it like we did before. Okay, so we'll give here colon, so it will give us all the respective columns also. Okay, now let's say that we want to select multiple rows from it. We can even do that. So guys, we have seen all of it in iloc also and in numpy arrays also. So let's say that I want 3, 7 and 8 labels. Okay, so this will give you the rows with label 3, 7 and 8. Now even we can give ranges here in case of labels. So let me print first 10 records here. Okay, and now select some of the row using labels. I'll use lock, and from 4th label to 7th label I want all the rows. Okay, so we can even give it like this or like this. It will work both ways. So you can see here from 4 to 8 labels it has given us all the rows. Okay, so this is equivalent to just specifying 4:8 here. The use of label based indexing will be more clear when we have custom row indices. Okay, so let us set the index by ourselves. So we'll say set underscore index, and I will set order ID for now as an index because this is string. Okay, and I will say in place equals to true to make it index. Okay, so now when I print its head, you will see it has become the index here. And now we will select some of the labels from it to be printed. So I will say lock, and I will choose this label. Okay, and I want to select only few columns from it. Let's say that I want only ship ID, okay, sales and discount. Okay, so you will see here that it has fetched this record with only ship ID and sales and discount columns. Now let's select multiple orders using labels and some columns. So I'll use market df dot lock, and I will choose some of the orders. Let's say that I choose this and the next one, which is this, and the next one, which is this. Okay, so multiple orders, and I want only some columns. So let's say that I want sales, discount, and order quantity. So I can specify the ranges because it's in sequence. So I will say sales and I will put order quantity here. Okay, so you guys can see that only orders which are matching this are returned with the columns which are between these ranges here. Now guys, the thing to notice here is in this is the inclusion part, unlike we had for indexes. Okay, now at last we'll see the use of booleans in selection of the particular columns, just like we did for iloc function. So let's copy that and see whether that also works with loc function. Okay, so I'll use loc here instead of that. Okay, so it is complaining here that we have only 9 columns but we have given 10 here. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 we have given. Okay, because we have made one as order ID, that is the reason it has saying like that. So what we'll do is, instead of this, we'll make the true as false. Okay, so it will still exclude the last two columns, which are shipping cost and product based margin. So to summarize, we discussed two explicit ways of indexing data frames today, that is through df.iloc and df.log functions. So this brings us to the end of today's session, guys. In the next lecture, we will cover the concepts like slicing, dicing, and merging and concatenation of the data frames. So stay tuned for that. Until then, I request you to practice the operations we did today with this data frame or any other ones I have uploaded in the GitHub repository for you. Also, as I have always said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. I will feel more than happy to answer. Also, please subscribe my channel if you have not already done, and please like and share if you like my content. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.